Hirendean Castle, a ruin that gives up little of its secret past and sits today a lonely, desolate, crumbling peel tower. Today we're 28 kilometres south of Edinburgh, close to Gladhouse Reservoir, to check out this mysterious ruined castle with a history shrouded by the mists of time. It sits on a lonely raised mound beside the Hirendean burn, on a flattened area of ground that hints of, perhaps, additional structures now long since lost. Its only company today are the 5 windswept trees that themselves seem out of place here. But what of this castle and its history? Well, it stands still to this day on the lands called Moorfoot, which in the 1100s was under the reign of David I, King of Scotland. He's widely seen as being instrumental in forming a land called Scotland, and in 1140 decided to grant the Moorfoots to the Cistercian monks. The monks decided to head out from their main residence at Melrose Cathedral and built a grange that became the focus of the estate. Things seemed to go fairly well until around 1560, when John Knox and company decided upon the Reformation in Scotland, and the monks were told to clear off, and the lands given to Mark Kerr, the then first Earl of Lothian. Being that this ruin dates back to the mid-16th century, it's therefore logical to assume that Mark Kerr had this structure built, and it seems it was built as a residence for his eldest son, Robert Kerr, the second Earl of Lothian. But certainly it's known that by 1682 the famous Scottish surveyor and cartographer John Adair had mapped the area, and the castle was present on his map and called Hirendean. Legend has it that it gained this name due to the abundance of heron birds in the area at the time, who would hunt small fish in the nearby streams and rivers. No such birds today, and it's also not clear when the spelling of the castle's name changed, nor is it clear why and when it fell into ruin. That said, in 1908 the book The Abbey of St Mary Newbattle, a memorial of the royal visit 1907, was published, and there is a mention of the castle within the book. The author, Reverend J.C. Carrick, who was the minister of Newbattle at the time, describes the castle as having been occupied within living memory, and goes on to state that, and I quote, "Arches of the roofs, staircases and barred doors can still be traced, although the hand of time has dealt roughly with what was once a strong keep, well guarded on every side." So we can understand that by this time the castle had been abandoned and fallen into ruin already. But there's more that JC told us in his book, a curious story from the distant past, just at the end of the 100 Years' War. The son of the castle's laird was serving as a soldier in Flanders and had become friends with another Scotsman who was also serving there. Remarkably, they survived the war and headed home. By 1463 they both arrived at Hirendean Castle, and there was a big party laid on for their return. The story goes that during the party, the beautiful young shepherdess decided to sing and recited the story of how she had fallen in love with her father's ploughman. But her dad wasn't happy with this, and there was a big old fight. At the sight of blood she fainted, and when she came to later ran off to the Moorfoots, where she became the shepherdess of the laird at Hirendean Castle. In a weird twist of fate, and as always the way with these old stories, Upon hearing this tale, the friend of the son's laird declared he was the ploughman who had escaped her father's attacks and had fled to war. United now, they married. And with the death of the shepherdess, his father inherited lands in Peeblesshire and lived happily ever after. Perhaps that's a tall story in the book, but there are similarities here to a much darker story. Let's jump back to Robert Kerr and 1611. Around 150 years later, after the story of the two soldiers and the shepherdess, Robert was about to marry Lady Annabella Campbell. She was a daughter of Archibald Campbell, the 7th Earl of Argyll, and upon being wed had 2 daughters. However, just 13 years later in 1624, Robert decided to kill himself, or at least that's what we were led to believe. Strangely, just 3 years before, Robert had obtained a charter for his lands and titles so that his daughter Anne would inherit them, but only if she married another Kerr. Upon Robert's death she became Countess of Lothian in her own right, but being unmarried, the lands were managed by the 1st Earl of Ancram, who was also called Robert Kerr, coincidentally enough. And 3 years later, Anne actually married his son, William Kerr, who then claimed the title Earl of Lothian. The lands and castle remained in the hands of the Kerr family, but it's still unclear when or why it was abandoned. However, there is a twist in the tale. Why did Robert decide to kill himself? And if the reports are to be believed, he did so by stabbing himself multiple times and then cutting his throat during a visit to Newbattle Abbey. But some records, however, state he died at his home, Hirendean Castle, and others state that he died upon Black Hope Scar, a mountain close to the castle. But why did he do this? It was rumoured that he was beset by debt, but other tales say that he had been consulting with magicians and witches for reasons unknown. What becomes more curious is a case that was raised against a local woman accused of witchcraft and murder. Margaret, or Meg's Eunice, said to be created upon that Black Hope Scar mountain close to the castle, was brought before the court in 1628. She was also a shepherdess and was well known for her remarkable skills in healing animals, but disturbingly also known for being in league with the devil. It's rumoured that she lured Robert with her beauty, placing him under a spell, and that they were having a romantic affair together. And now that Robert was dead, Meggs was accused of witchcraft and murder. She was arrested, tried and convicted of both counts, and it's likely she met her end by being burnt at the stake. Meanwhile, Annabella didn't hang around in the area though, and headed to Europe where she visited Paris for a while and eventually ended her days in Antwerp in 1652. But why did she feel she had to get away from this area? It could be that Meggs had cursed Robert, which had driven him mad and caused him to kill himself. Or it could have been Robert's wife Annabella, who in a jealous rage did murder her husband. We're not sure either way. What do you think? But the story doesn't end here, because Meggs is back in the 1800s, where she makes an appearance in local history as Margaret Hawthorne. She was a woman of high position in Galloway and was married with a young son. Strangely, the husband died suddenly, and Margaret and her son were left alone. Enter a local ruffian who sought to make claims to some of Margaret's estate by bullying her with threats and insults. But one insult too many is the final straw, and in a blind rage she shoots the man dead. Of course, this doesn't go unnoticed, and to avoid trouble with the law, she decides to make a hasty exit and runs away to the Newbattle Valley, leaving her son behind. A fugitive from the law, she led a reclusive life in an abandoned camp house on an isolated hill not far from Hirendean Castle. She became known locally as Camp Meg, and would be seen riding across the hills on her white horse called Snowball. As she grew older, she seemed to continue to evade the law, and was well known for her remarkable skills in healing animals, just like Meggs from 150 years earlier. She remained a mysterious character who lived alone, save for her white horse, which seemed never to age. She was considered a witch, with stories of her confronting the devil, and it may be at such a confrontation that she is said to have died in a great storm in the winter of 1827, or perhaps the devil took back his own. That same storm may have been the death blow for Hirendean Castle too, as the stones started to crumble and the structure began to fall apart. What secrets these walls could tell, and perhaps if you visit, they will speak to you of the past and reveal what really went on here. Or maybe not. It's a good area to walk in and an interesting Scottish castle ruin off the beaten track. I hope you like coming along today and visiting the castle. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and you can subscribe for more like this. Thanks for watching. See ya.